assuming.
I don't want that.
No.
Read.
Okay, we'll call to order this meeting of the Park City Board of Education today, March 21st at 3:30 p.m. We're asked for allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First order is closed session. I'll entertain a motion to convene closed session for the purpose of strategy session to discuss collective bargaining.
I make the motion to move to closed session. That reason's taken.
Okay, second.
Seconded by Member Peters. I'll ask in order, we approve to go into closed. Nick? Yep. Meredith?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Wendy?
Yes.
Andrew, yes. Okay, we'll leave it closed.
Did you go to the dance?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You're not really big time. It got loud, it's just fast. Maybe you can-
Yeah.
But it was a lot.
Yeah.
She had a great time. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
By the way, no, that's not.
Oh, I heard, did you?
Yes.
Here's what else. Okay, how do you like it? Merry Christmas.
I'm trying to think about
That was all Aaron.
what I'm gonna do with it, but, yeah,
We were excited about it.
I have it, and it's in a place of prominence.
Honestly, it's still alive. We went.
Is it?
Alive. Oh, the little guy. Got neat, got personality. Oh, the little pinch.
Yeah.
Got-
By the way, I did the same,
Definitely do.
I did the same, I did someone this year, and the fish is still alive too.
Oh, now we can take pictures with big thumbs. Still alive.
All right, we'll go into the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes special session of February 13th, the closed session minutes of the 13th, regular session minutes of February 14th, special session minutes of March 14th, closed session minutes of March 14th, count by the table registers of February 9th, 14th, 15th, 17th, 22nd, 23rd, 27th, March 1st, 2nd, 6th, 10th, and 13th. Board of Education appeal with regards to instructional materials, travel requests, UHSAA boys volleyball approval, personnel information, and February revenues and expenditures.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
Okay, any discussion on items listed in the consent agenda?
No.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. We'll go into employee reports. Okay.
Right. Couple updates on negotiations and then a policy, we're kind of looking at PCA and then another policy. So negotiations are underway between the PCA and the district for the licensed professional agreement, the LPA, and the licensed compensation agreement, the LCA. Teams from PCA and the district have participated in interest-based bargaining trainings and will have meetings next week to begin the negotiations process in earnest. PCA recently surveyed members on their values and expectations for both agreements, and we're bringing that data with us into the negotiations process. That survey is still kind of ongoing. Unsurprisingly, so far, members are most concerned about basic economic issues facing Park City teachers. The impact of inflation on buying power, cost of housing in Park City and Wasatch back, the stress and economic impact of commuting, and the issues of recruiting good teachers, and the goals of long-serving teachers when they retire. We're hoping the new agreements can, in varying ways, address those concerns. The goal is to complete negotiations on both agreements, or members can review and vote by the end of the school year. This is our main priority from now through June. Kind of fingers crossed on that process. PCA, so kind of a policy that we're looking at and kind of working out the district. So PCA has been working with the district to create a draft revision of policy 7070, which is the paid parental leave policy. As policy currently stands, employees may not take paid parental leave more than once in a 24-month period. Teachers who become pregnant twice in the 24-month window would face difficult decisions about their job status, pay, and family planning. We believe the current policy discriminates against teachers who become pregnant. While the number of teachers impacted each year by this policy is relatively small, these are not hypothetical concerns. We have had members negatively impacted by this policy this school year. Given the restrictions on pregnant people in the state of Utah and as a public organization with children and families at the center, we believe we should make it easier, not harder, to be any parent in our school district. It's an equity issue that pregnancy can be dictated by district policy. We would love the opportunity to discuss this policy further and hope to have a draft to the board soon. Talk with some of you all about some of those ideas, having this conversation. Dr. Gilday and myself and Mary Morgan have talked about it quite a bit. So that's something we're working on. PCA would also like to say its support for a new draft policy in front of the board, policy 1006, education equity. The new policy is modeled on the district's mission statement of 5 pillars, a mission written by educators and stakeholders many years ago. I want to say maybe in 2017 when we wrote those, roughly. We believe the policy provides a framework for ensuring every student, employee, and family has the opportunity and access to academic, social, professional, and emotional inclusion and belonging. The draft policy was shared with teachers in every school, and for the feedback generated by Innovate K-12, the tool used to gather faculty feedback. The response to the policy was overwhelmingly positive. I think Dr. Gilday may be sharing some of that today with y'all, so talk about that too much. We look forward to the continuing conversation regarding that policy and hope it will be approved by the board after the 20-day comment period. Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
So you guys are gonna bring a draft of the updated pregnancy policy?
Yeah.
All right.
We're done working on it, so we'll. Yeah, cool.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Cindy here. I represent the EIG Classified Employees Group. I want to thank you for allowing me to give you this update on behalf of EIG today. I want to thank Dr. Sorensen for providing the opportunity for all employee groups to participate in last week's interest-based training. It was a very informative process and we look forward to moving ahead with negotiations. We have been asked to prepare a list of negotiation items for our meeting on March 28th, and we're looking forward to collaborating with the other employee groups to start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben Branson, Park City Classified Employee Association. We want to thank Dr. Sorensen and Dr. Gilday and the board for a very informative and productive interest-based bargaining workshop. PCCA is looking forward to the opportunity to collaboratively work with all stakeholders for the benefit of students, employees, and the districts as a whole. We look forward to our upcoming meetings next week to discuss the budget and explore all stakeholders' interests. We've surveyed members and look forward to sharing employee interests. Compensation and benefits are the most critical interests of our members. We were happy to hear the discussion during last month's Board of Education meeting acknowledging a need to fill chronically unfilled positions, which takes a toll on employee morale and has created hardships in implementing critical programs. That said, we hope in the future we can create opportunities for communication between the Board of Education and the associations to brainstorm ideas. For example, we would tell you that the benefited transportation positions have not been advertised on the district website. Currently, only substitute bus drivers are advertised. We're talking about raises and things for groups that haven't been filled. We would think that would be a place to start. So we'd like to have these conversations with you more. Some employees are under the impression that they will be receiving a $5 an hour raise, which is creating great upheaval and many phone calls from members, which may have been preventable if we had more opportunities to discuss them. So in the future, we are hoping as one of our interests to create that. But we look forward to the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Tanner.
Good afternoon, it's the operations report for the 21st of March 23. We're still keeping our eye on COVID. We're at low level in the community. We still do have all the shop mitigations in place and are prepared in the event that we get a breakout to respond. Buildings and grounds team has been doing a fantastic job keeping the grounds clear of snow and lots available for folks. Especially nice this morning. They have the ones cleaned and those kind of things. The FY24 capital outlay budget requests and walkthroughs are complete. We're prioritizing and finalizing those numbers this week. We just found our allocation out this afternoon, Randy, and we're trying to shoehorn the $8 million requests into a significantly lower number. The operations staff is ensuring all the drains and culverts on Park City School District properties are clear, preparing for potential spring flooding. And the community, you'll be seeing some outreach PR-wise from both the county and the city regarding preparations for the spring and the potential flooding. Transportation, Rich and his team have been doing a great job supporting safe transport of our kids in heavy snow and challenging environment. Staffing continues to be a challenge with the office staff and mechanics filling in regularly to support regular routes. Our routes are still being evaluated for consolidation, in light of staffing shortfalls, and we'll pull the trigger on those as required with staffing needs. And we're requesting 2 new buses with capital outlay in FY24, which will remove the last of the high emission diesel buses from the group. Child Nutrition Service, John just and his team went through a state administrative review. They had a nice job. We're just cleaning up the closeout items on that. And he's in the process of reviewing applicants for the now 2 positions that are open in his department. Human Resources, you heard from the staff reports that we completed interest-based bargaining with the Labor and Administration team on the 10th of March. That was hosted by the Federal Mediation Reconciliation Service, so it was a very nice training. In preparation for negotiations, conversations regarding suggestions for professional agreements are happening right now with associations in between the superintendent, HR, and association leaders. Focus groups have been determined and interviews are happening regarding job descriptions and that they will be used by EMS to benchmark our positions. Special service contracts were developed for the ECHO's admin and tech support remained with the year since we last Dave Allen. We've split this job into special service agreements that are being picked up by teachers for the rest of the year. And we'll come up with a plan for filling the position for the next fiscal year. And staffing issues continue to be a concern, as we've all heard in all of our support service areas. Security, we're looking at bringing on the Aegis instant notification system, and the implementation is underway right now. We had a meeting today, and it's very promising. We're going to present that to the security committee in about a month, and we're in the process of also implementing that with the dispatch center for Suffolk County. An interesting technology just came to our attention that we're reviewing and we'll bring to the security committee. Is called Zero Eyes. And what Zero Eyes does, it leverages our camera system, which is over 300 cameras that we have available, and uses artificial intelligence to pinpoint potential weapons that are exposed. So it could be something really nice that, parking lots and the spaces between the treasure and high school, that if a weapon does emerge, the AI will pick that up and provide notifications, certified dispatch, and put people on the list. So very promising technology, and we'll have that vetted at the security committee meeting next month. Security committee, as I mentioned, is meeting on the 18th of April. The board is encouraged to attend if you like. Lori usually picks up Chevron donuts for us, so I think there's most of the police officers back. So we're looking forward to everyone. That's all I have for you. Unless you have questions.
Are those donuts really good?
They are really good. The bear claws.
Yeah, I have a question on soil. By Treasurer and Bolin. We have another kind of request from media, which I'm sure you saw, right? Going over the history of that, and I think the history is half the story, and then what we're going to do going forward is the other half. What's the latest on all of that, and what should we expect, to see over the next couple of months?
Yeah, so we received a request from KPCD regarding the soils. There was an assertion within that request of a lot of asbestos being included in the piles. So we had treasured. We're not apprised of any asbestos and never has tested for it. We're checking the EPA right now to see where that information came from. If by some chance there will be asbestos in those files, which we don't anticipate, they are capped with soil, and they're also capped with snow right now. So there's still no possibility that any frangible asbestos getting airborne in a hazard for anyone. But we're confident it's not there, but if it is, we'll take action to look at it. There's also some assertions that there were questions, historical questions about when the district was apprised of the soil contaminants that were on the treasury and Poland campuses. And I'm not sure where the angle is coming from in the request from PCSD, but the district has always known that those soils are contaminated. We've always worked in alignment with the contaminated soil standards. The only question that remaining was about who owned the soils with DEQ or the Park City Municipal behind treasury, and that's still being worked out. So we've worked closely with DEQ. We responded to all the requests. We've been responsive to anything they've asked us, and we're just waiting for the most recent response. So, as far as I'm concerned, we've safely handled the soil. We're aware of the jurisdiction. We're cooperating closely with DEQ, and we'll just play the ball where it lies.
Was that soil there before the buildings were built?
Yeah, the soil has been there for about 7.5 years. And then that was part of the jurisdictional consideration about it. I wasn't here back then. Jill wasn't here back then. Ryan, the person who in charge of soils at the city, wasn't here back then. So the actual jurisdiction of DEQ escaped notification. It did exist in some electronic files that we maintained, but it did not come to light. And so it was discovered during our due diligence associated with construction. As soon as we discovered it, we complied with the edicts that it required. But there was some concern there with the timing of it. So, but like I said, as soon as we became aware of it, we complied with it. Whether or not we were aware of it is kind of irrelevant, because the way that we handle soils at all times was in compliance with the Park City contaminated soil ordinance, which requires a certain way to handle soils. We complied with that 100% of the time, which exceeds the requirements of the DEQ. So it really, the only question that remains is, okay, can those soils be there legally behind Treasure Mountain Junior High? And if not, and so the question is, though, can we keep them on site in anticipation of Treasure being torn down, push those soils into the site and use those to fill to save the taxpayers several $1 million? And that's kind of what we're in the process of figuring out right now.
I have one other unrelated to that question, that maybe a historical question that might or might not know about the flooding in the spring runoff. Are we aware of any of our campuses having flooded in the past?
Yeah,
Or
well, I can't comment. I think last big snow.
I know, I mean, this is
2011.
historical for sure.
I wasn't around then. I do know that we have checked all our maps. None of our schools are in floodplains. We might have some access roads to the schools that we see some flooding of a culvert underneath the road. It gets full of branches or debris, basically clogged up, but I wouldn't anticipate any at the schools. So that's kind of where it's at. We have our staff, during the last runoff last week, we had quite a bit of water moving on the campus, and our guys were making sure that all the publics and drains were clear, and that's what we'll continue to do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we had our wonderful dance on March 11th. We got some feedback from students as well as some parents, which we'll be working as hard as we can to implement those changes in future dances. And upcoming events, we have Wish Week, which is going to be the last week in March. And for those of you who don't know what Wish Week is, it is where we partner with the Make-A-Wish Foundation to help grant a child's wish.
Okay.
And that's all that's really happening for us.
Looks like your donations are really coming in for that.
Yeah.
And great job on the dance. That was amazing. It was amazing.
Yes. Any questions?
Did you mention the souls for souls?
Okay.
I know you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Is that something that is an ongoing effort?
For us, we did it earlier in the year.
Right.
However, it is something that's currently happening at Treasure Mountain that their leadership class has taken up.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Goodback.
Excellent, thank you. So I have a PowerPoint that Lori will display for us, I hope. If not, let me know, I'm opening airplane, very good. during tonight's presentation. We have two different groups here that may have joined us. We have our equity committee members. You want to give yourselves a round of applause? And then we have our FACE team. They're going to be helping out most likely tonight with these. So I narrowed the topics tonight to just these two topics. So of course, as we flip the slide there, our collective work is always to ensure student and staff safety and well-being, high academic achievement and opportunities. And before I forget, this is one of those equity principles that's really important and we don't always think about. At our high school, Park City High School, we have 75% of our students who participate in at least one AP class with a 73% success rate. That is unlike most of the nation. It is really a high bar. Sometimes you can have high participation, but 30% passing, 38% passing. We have 75% joining, 73% passing. That's an incredible metric that does speak to high academic achievement for those students who are pursuing those classes. Now, the question always remains, what is the opportunity for the 25% who are not maybe accessing that now? Is it because they don't know? Are they worried if it's too hard? You know, that would be the part that we work on next as part of an equity pathway. So that's kind of an exciting thing to work on. All right, so tonight I'm working on two topics, primarily helping everybody understand the work of the Inspiring and Supporting All Students Equitably Committee and introducing their policy draft, as well as talking about one of our pillars, which is communication. So we're going to do a little bit of overview of that. Anything we do in the district is linked to our mission, which is inspiring and supporting all students equitably to achieve their academic and social potential. That mission and the vision were established in 2017 by a large community participation process. So that's how the mission, the vision, and the 5 pillars were delineated. So we used that word equitably way before anything got politicized. So people should remember that was, that's been a long-standing goal, is to increase access and opportunity. And the board has done that consistently since I've been here, removing academic fees, all kinds of things. Our vision as a school district, we talk about this often, is we're a whole child district. This is the national definition of whole child education, where our students are safe, supported, engaged, challenged, and healthy. If we are making decisions surrounding those 5 thoughts, we are likely doing a good job. And when something is amiss, that's where we need to say, where was the misstep and what can we bolster, either in policy or procedure. So we are a whole child district. That's really important. Our Inspiring and Supporting All Students Equitably Committee this year has 2 major goals, which you've heard about, which is aligning to the vision and then really thinking about what does it mean to create and maintain a welcoming, inclusive, and equitable school climate where every child feels a belonging in the room and where you really are encouraged to be engaged in the learning and in the environment. The committee had an action plan for the year and they have definitely tracked this. So they've looked at model policies, they've looked at external samples, they have completed an RFP and the scoring of an outside equity assessment team. They've ensured that our training modules, at least level 1, was available. They've had, they're looking at data at different meetings, they're doing case studies. So they're very involved in the work of what it means to have equitable process and equitable outcomes. And they've been a really dedicated team. There are 21 members. We've broken into a subcommittee for some of the policy work. A different group of people helped with the RFP and scoring that RFP. And those things are funded this year by the Park City Education Foundation. So that has been very welcomed and a big success to have that funding. We have administrators, staff, a community member who's a rep, we have a board member rep on that committee, and really thinking about how to get feedback from the community. So we used a new tool with this policy draft called Innovate Ed or Innovate Ed K-12, something like that, where it's a really cool interactive. You have like 3 questions, 3 prompts, and you can type in your responses, and then you can go back in and kind of see other people's responses and kind of fine tune responses. And that was a really successful process. I think Jake mentioned it. So it was a cool tool to use. It's a new tool in our toolbox for gathering community input, stakeholder input. We're excited about that. So the draft policy is in right now. It's going to go through final edits. It's going to be posted for 20 days for feedback from the community. I had hoped we could use the Innovate K-12 even with the broader community, but we may just do emails for now. People are kind of used to that when they provide feedback to a policy. So right after our meeting tonight, after this is posted, people will get an invitation to review it, you know, link to the policy, and then if they have any feedback to send it in, and there'll be like a due date on that. So then we will screen through all those comments, see if there are any other edits to make before we bring it to you for a final edit. For the RFP, as I mentioned, there are 3 teams that are, there were 5 submittals and 3 selected to interview for next steps. Those people would be looking at climate surveys, maybe conducting a survey, look at classroom environment, look at teacher values and beliefs about learners, look at student beliefs about learning, and then identify for us what we can do better in each of our schools as we develop this plan together. So that will be great external feedback to the work that's happening in the district. So again, the timeline where we have this first draft to you, it's a first ever policy. It is aligned to the strategic pillars for the most part, so you'll be able to see that. We will then draft the procedures or kind of the action plan for this policy over the next 6 months or so. Again, probably gathering some feedback loop on that. We will gather some student insight information this spring before the school year is over to help inform kind of like I talked about with that AP test. You know, why are 25% of the kids not accessing that? Is there some barrier that we're not aware of? So we'll hopefully get good survey data, and from that survey data, we're hoping to have what's called a student insight card. And so this insight card would allow teachers to know the students' hopes, dreams, aspirations, their grade point average, their favorite class, what they want to do when they grow up. And so then teachers having this information and knowing this builds a connection right away with their secondary learners. So we're looking forward to that potential tool being used. We will engage in that equity assessment process, which I know will take a lot of time and information sharing back and forth. And we will have ongoing professional development to support the learning environment, right? That whole idea of equitable outcomes and process is our adult mindset and our beliefs about what kids can do. And that is probably one of the primary outcomes, is a growth mindset for all of us, educators and kids, as we re-engage in learning post-pandemic years. All right, that was a lot of talking, sorry about that. All right, so from the committee, this is some information from the committee. There were many drafts based on national model policies. The feedback loop from Innovate K-12 had over 200 responses that were then calibrated with the policy committee to make any adjustments before this draft was issued to all of you. So that's been a lot of analyzing, synthesizing, and putting that into the verbiage of the policy. And staff and students contributed to that. That was cool. So here are some of the insights from the report from this external Innovate K-12 education group. That there's overwhelming feedback supporting having a policy of this type and this particular policy language. That respondents praise the community for being inclusive and yet still support putting inclusivity language into the policy, so that we all have kind of a draft definition of what some of this terminology is. Ensuring that the draft policy takes into account both physical and mental health and well-being, that there is a desire for more outreach and mentoring opportunities for families, and that many comments were targeted to making sure that we have kind of that after action, so that the equity policy actually becomes kind of a framework like our strategic pillars to kind of measure, monitor, document hold everybody accountable, because until every classroom is demonstrating equitable outcomes, we have not achieved our goal. All right, and now I would love family and community engagement team to come up, introduce themselves quickly. They're going to do a quick overview of their work so far, and then I'm going to jump in with 2 more slides. Do they need to change PowerPoint? You guys, okay? Praise God. Did I miss something?
Just the new, the updated material.
I'm gonna do the last 2 slides after. I'm gonna give them like 10 minutes.
Hi, everybody.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us. It's actually been the beginning of the year that we got this team together, family and community engagement. Dr. Gilday envisioned this group. She started working on it actually prior to actually getting us all together. And after I saw what she had in mind, you know, I scratched my head a couple of times. I could see that there was a lot of great things in bringing us together and the approach that we were going to take with this. So this is our why. It's about people. It's about our students. The things that they can accomplish. It's about our employees. You can see there at the bottom, you know, 30+ year employee. We need to value everything that's in there. And that's what excuse me, I'm so sorry. I have a cold. Do you mind taking this up? I need to go to the bathroom.
Sure.
That's quick.
So as Eric was going to say, here are the members of our team, and when we were originally sort of charged with coming together, we sort of looked at it as a triangle with different sort of levels of engagement that all are around the same focus of informing and uniting. Eric is our director of faith, family, and community engagement. He is over he works a lot with the outreach and continues to do that work with our community partners. And then the outreach team, which is not listed here, but it's very much a part of what we do with each of those representatives at each of our different schools. I work with the communications, media relations. I think sometimes spokesperson kind of depends, really working as trying to be liaison between internal and external communications. And Colton is our public information officer, our PIO. He does a lot of work with the website and the writing and the bringing of the information together. I love this picture because this is Eric in action at the coffee with friends. Thank you. And again, just our purpose is informing and uniting both internally and externally. So this is, let's just going back a little bit. As I came onto the team in the fall, Dr. Gilday had a charge for us to go out and talk with people about this newly formed FACE team, what our goals were. And we interviewed the directors throughout the district, the administrators, and really asked them, you know, what are your hopes for communications in the district? What are some potential messaging needs that you have? What are some opportunities that you see this year that you would really like celebrated that we can help out with? And what are your pinch points? You know, what are the things that are barriers that are getting in the way of effective communication? And from those interviews, which were fascinating, we came with 3 different kind of common themes. And then we took those common things that you can see here, and then we shared them out again of, you know, does this resonate? Did we capture what you are sensing within the district? And we've been getting a lot of feedback on that. And so we have since been changing the way that this looks, because the feedback that we got was this looks linear, and communications and our goals are not linear. And so the suggestion, and this came from
our board members' feedback, from Nick and Wendy that we had some conversations with, came from conversations in the Building Bridges community, as well as just last week at the Park City High School PTO was to make it a triangle. And at the bottom is creating trust and leading with creating trust. Like, we couldn't even hear really the align communications or be proactive until we know we had that foundation of like, why we do that. We want to inform and unite so that we build that engagement, that trustworthiness, that reliability. And you can see some of the different areas that we have gone into that. So working on refining what that looks like, but it very much fits the work that we were doing, and appreciate the feedback too. And you can see some examples of some of the accomplishments this year. It's just some of the few that we focused on.
So part of the job, it's kind of like a three-pronged approach, and mine is the family community engagement part of it. I mean, it's kind of in the title, but that is my charge. And internally, I work with one of our teacher coordinators with the green team, this environmental and sustainability team. They look at things from practices, what they can do at the school sites, like Jeremy Ranch, they do composting. They came up here, looked at bills, past bills, so that they can look at energy costs, et cetera. Teaching and learning, I sit in those committee meetings and listen to what the trends are, what comes in, and what the challenges are for our students and our teachers, and what we will be implementing. And Heidi joins me in those. That way, you know, we're kind of in the know as far as what our foundation or what we're here for is, and that's to educate, to teach. Translation services also fall under our family and community engagement MOUs, since we work with the partners, make sure that we have clear lines of expectations with our community partners. Coffee chats, those tazas de café, we don't have them at every school, we're still promoting them and we're pushing them along. Jeremy Rand or Trailside Elementary, just this last month, this one had the very first one. Parley's, we'll keep working there. We did contact the parents. They're comfortable with just the newsletters, but sometimes you don't know what you're missing unless you've actually had them. Building bridges, as Heidi mentioned earlier, that's with the PTOs. Eventually that'll grow a little bit, but we're being very systematic about it. And that's family engagement. I mean, we have the PTOs, the parents there, and communication, we can align communications with them, and also hear feedback as far as what we can do to improve. And then we're part of the safety committee as well. Externally, all our community partners, school districts are the fabric of society, and you know, we're intertwined with a lot of different communities members and stuff, as I mentioned before, the MOUs. And so that's just a partial list of some of the community members that we work with. And this is where our outreach team that we have at every school is also part of the FACE team.
This next slide is mine. Again, focusing on our internal and external communications. Thank you. And you know, one of the things that just comes forward in all of this is that sense of a need for balance. And it's tricky, you know, between the balance of finding a level of transparency that builds trust, that gives enough information for people to feel like they are in the know, that nothing's being hidden from them, and then balancing that with the legal requirements that we have for student privacy and for you know, employment issues. And then there's also the balance between district and school. Of, you know, what is a school issue that should be communicated at that level that we can help support, but what grows to a district issue and as something that we need to deal with from that and in conjunction with the school. And you know, it never happens on the timeline that people want, you know, including us. But finding that balance has really been what we are striving to do. And of course, you know, we hear more about the mistakes than about the successes, and we're really learning from them. You know, one of the things that was just recently suggested that while we have been trying to do this, we hadn't really reached it, but it was like, if you can't tell us, just let us know why you can't tell us. And we're going to be better with that. And so we're learning and growing. And it is definitely a balancing act, but we're making some strides. Just to focus a couple things on externally, having you know, our media, our local media is just critical in our community. You know, we all live here. This is home. And wanting to have that positive relationships with our local media is so important. And it was one of the biggest charges that Dr. Gilday has given us, was to really focus on those relationships, how we can build that trust, how we can align the communication, be proactive, celebrate, grow, be proactive with anticipating issues. And you know, I think that realistically we're making progress. Is it perfect? No. Is it a priority? Yes. And we didn't get here overnight. We're not going to be out of it overnight. There's no silver bullet, but there is a lot of progress when we can focus on those shared goals of informing, uniting around our mission, which is, you know, all about having the right things in place for our students to be able to be healthy, engaged, thriving, healthy, engaged. Safe, supportive, thank you. And then internally, one of the things that we heard just really loud and clear from our in those early interviews is the importance of our PCSD employees to hear information first. And we've been really working hard, again, mostly successfully, not always, but on getting communication out to our people with a heads up of, hey, you're going to be hearing this, and don't be surprised, or picking up the phone and saying, you know, at this school, this permit was just awarded, or there's, you know, something that tries to get ahead of it. And again, we're working in progress that has really been prioritized. And of course, we've been really focusing on our celebrations and employee recognitions. And I just really want to credit Colton's work and his excellent photography of really trying to get that out there in a proactive way, driving our own news as much as we can, and being the purveyors of that on the website.
Okay, this was my slide. I am Colton Elliott as well. My job is more the positive communication, so internal, like showcasing the highlights of our students, our staff, all those photos that you saw in the first slide that we showed. It's really cool that I get to go around and see everything that is happening in the school system. Going on my first year at working for the district, so just being able to see all the cool things that happen here is pretty amazing, and sharing that with our families. And I do that by utilizing the website, which we just updated through Blackboard. However, in September, Blackboard got bought out by Final Site. And so we're in the middle of migrating it again.
Yeah.
And so going through 2 website migrations within a year is pretty challenging. And so we're working with all the ETSs that are to align trainings. We do that bi-weekly. We have 4-hour training coming up. We have Final Site to make sure every school is going to be aligned and everything's going to look the same. I'm really excited about that, because I guess initially we wanted Final Site, however, it was twice the price of Blackboard. And so now we're getting Blackboard for the same price as Final Site for the next 5 years. So that's really exciting. And then also, let's see, so website too, so far, this is kind of updated too, I just checked today, we're at like 120,000 views total on our website over since the start of school year to now. So our main goal is driving people there for information. So that's where we're heading.
My suspicion is people look at it for weather data.
That could be as well.
I think it peaks in the winter. Do you do the social media?
We are coordinated with social media.
Who does the post?
We send all our stories to them. So right now it's contracted out.
Oh, okay.
We talked about in that contract this school year, and so we're talking about that internally to take that on as a base team as well.
What is the cost of bringing that internally versus contracting?
It's gonna save us about $14,000 as for a 1-year contract. So if we can take that in internally, that's a huge savings, and we're fully capable of it, so
We're kind of doing it with some of these stories, so.
yeah, majority of
Yeah.
it.
Since you don't need resources to do that, you have everything you need, you just bring it within the team.
Correct, so now we're just waiting for that contract.
Would be great to actually get,
June first.
student.
For sure.
Well, and some planning time to over the summer
Exactly.
to.
So,
Yeah.
okay, plan that out.
On this page, which just, this whole thing is just really a progress report, because we're not there. We're in the storming before the norming. And again, I just want you to envision our draft with the triangle in the middle that is unite, inform and unite around our mission, keeping that the focus. We're really working on unifying behind that message in all that we do. And then the pillars is building trust in many ways that we do that, both in small and larger ways that we, again, work in progress, aligning the communications, getting on a more regular cadence. We've got great communications in this district. They're not overlapping in ways that we want them to be more effective. And again, sharing our stories, staying ahead of the narrative, being proactive, driving to the website when we can. Some of you can see on the right, some of the progress that we're definitely making. When we talked about the website migration, which, has been an enormous amount of work that he really understated there. The refinement of our internal protocols and communications is ongoing. And then we get some of that through our professional development together as a team. Anticipating issues around, legislative impacts, educator detention, budget. And we now have all the equipment and that's some music, night song for podcast development that we're really excited to launch here shortly. So, and the increased analytics, Colton shared with you some of that for our website analytics, but right now we don't have a lot of access to that to be able to see what our successes are. And that's one thing that we are really working toward being able to evaluate is, what's working, what's having our highest reach, and making sure that as we move forward in aligning those communications that we have access to those analytics.
So one of the things, once you kind of look at the three-pronged approach, when you look at it, the stuff hits the news. Let's say, it's a newsworthy event, it goes to the media. We follow up in print and on the website, and we try to drive everybody to the website for the most accurate and timely information. And then I follow up with the family engagement component to do the face-to-face meetings with the people so that we can actually engage in those conversations of those topics that have happened so that we can have aligned communication and then get correct information out there. And an example that I use at the PTO meeting, we could be sitting right here in this meeting right now, and they could be writing about us in some social website, and so we can never beat the news. I mean, the social media news. And so it's our job to then go back and, we're trying to reel it back in. And so with time, I can see an army of supporters. I mean, I know you're all, influencers in this community. You have a position, that allows you to do that and talk to people. So we would rely on you, we would rely on our parents and our teachers, and that's that aligned communication so that we can get good information out there. There's a lot of great information, like equity, they're coming up next. Don't want to steal their thunder, but this district has been doing equity before it was coined or, dubbed anything. Over 20 years ago, they hired a bilingual specialist, and it's because they saw a need. And so those are the kind of great things that have been going on for a very long time in this place. And we need to start setting that story straight. And I think that's the slide.
I think that is, yes.
Excellent. All right, and I just have a quick summary for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. It's delighted you could come.
Thanks.
Things and probably the different departments working and doing such great work. Colton has done 6 feature articles this year, so we aren't, a typical school year is 36 weeks, and we already have 36 articles. So you're talking about more than 1 article a week that he's been pushing with positive news. This month's newsletter does feature the outreach coordinators. I don't know, Eric, you saw that yet? This month's newsletter does feature the outreach coordinators, so that's kind of fun to be able to share that with them. They had great professional pictures and it's a great story to tell. So again, a great equity effort before those words were used. So the engagement strategies are ongoing. I really appreciate the tiered internal communications. I think that's an important piece, keeping our staff well informed so that they also have accurate information out there. Keeping people going to the website is helpful, and with that 120,000 views, you know that people are going to it. We do use social media for positive stories. We do not look at it as an equitable algorithm, though, to ensure that we can get we can't depend on everybody having Facebook or Instagram, right? We just can't. We can put news out there, but our best way to get news out is through email typically, and that's typically what our parents say they prefer in their communication surveys. We do intend to continue our partnerships with local outlets, media outlets, and blogs and things like that. The Building Bridges community communications is a great way for parent leadership to learn more about what's happening in the district. And then we are using this research-based framework, which is research, analyze, communicate, evaluate as kind of a cycle. And the team does really nice after action reports to kind of reflect on what worked, what did. And then the final slide for tonight is, as board leadership, we know that you are leaders in the community. So as board leadership, as spokesperson, we know that you are happy to reestablish the cadence of appearances on PCSD following a monthly meeting, talking about agenda items. I think in our community, we sometimes, when we're asked by the media, sometimes the questions are tactical, administrative, operational, and aren't always what the board's expertise is. So we have to have a balance of when a district administrator or a program or I go on for those tactical things. For the board questions, they really should be what happened at the meeting, what decisions were made, what policies are you enforcing or addressing, how's the accountability metrics, right? It's the bigger picture stuff, but often our people ask the nitty-gritty details, and so it puts the board member in an uncomfortable position, and it isn't really the right way to answer that. So we have to kind of work together. If we stick to the agenda highlights, then anybody can have a pretty effective 15 minutes, right, with the radio team. But we're happy to answer, and Heidi's always happy to go on. We're happy to have the principal of the high school go on and talk about. We have 7 actual finalists, not just national merit semi-finalists, but finalists. In a school twice that size, you sometimes don't have that number. So again, a big success story there. Board leadership and administration, as Heidi mentioned, we're going to start a little podcast, so that'll be a fun way to get news and information out in an audio, for auditory people who enjoy that. We will continue to iterate a variety of survey tools. So this Innovate K-12, you'll probably hear a little bit more about, and it's a great way to get input on maybe a challenging topic, like what should happen with Treasure? What should happen with that site? Should we remodel it? Should we demolish it? That will be a good Innovate K-12 survey tool that we'll put that out to the community before the end of the year to get some of that information. Even though you have plenty of time to decide that, we'll start that conversation. As board leadership, at the end of every meeting, we do push out the actions and accomplishments, little summary of the meeting. We've been doing that for about 2 years. We'll continue that. We'll continue our district newsletters, which are proactive, programming related, but it's great for new families to learn about the district. We will continue to develop board statements or information when they are warranted. And in the PowerPoint, which you'll have in your board packet, you actually have a link to a sample of the actions and accomplishments, the monthly district newsletter, and a sample statement. So for instance, when this equity policy goes out, We have a short draft that we've been working on that can go out with it to introduce policies to the community. And that is what's new and how you can follow us.
Great.
It is a lot. There's a lot going on. It's very busy. Never dull. Never bored. But I really appreciate that the FACE team for taking the time tonight. I appreciate equity leadership for being here. Mary Krista, I cannot thank you enough for your facilitation this year. It's really, really, really been helpful. You've kept us focused, you've kept us motivated, and you've kept us on task. And you are really good at timekeeping.
Thank you.
It's true. You are excellent. Yeah, it's been really productive though, and I think a lot of us in the room, Jake, would you say that? It's been very productive for everybody. In 2018, when I came, we had a year where we kind of admired the problem. In 2019, we did a lot of the school visits, which were amazing. We got to hear from student voice, what's working in equity, what's not, and where are there missing opportunities. In the meantime, the board had removed all the fees. That was cool. Then 2020 hit. And we kind of took a pause. We just had to figure out how to manage the pandemic. In 21, we came back and we started this, coalition, like how do we move forward? How do we move the community forward? And I don't know if we were ready, as Rebecca Gonzalez said in the meeting, for all of the different ideas that came forth. It was everything from workforce housing, all the way to hire somebody to oversee diversity and kind of everything in between. So we know that until every classroom has effective training and equitable outcomes, we won't reach the goal. Said that before, I'll say that again, and we will keep striving towards that. But now we're going to have a nice framework to say what is an equitable outcome and how do we measure it, and it'll show up on the dashboard and it'll show up in different ways in our metrics. So that's pretty exciting, and that's all based on the work of this team. And what will continue are these procedural frameworks and really an action plan that really could set the stage for your next strategic initiatives aligned to these pillars.
Is that being drafted?
It is. They have a wonderful draft outline so far.
Because I think, like what you mentioned with the community, that like the policy is great, but unless we have a plan of how these things get accomplished, then it's not very effective. So, right, that's.
Can you expand on that? So what are you specifically referring to?
I just mean, like, how are we gonna make sure that we are creating equitable outcomes for kids?
Okay.
Yeah,
It requires
the
action.
implementation,
Right.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
I mean, the policy, sorry, the work to be done
Right.
is amazing. Obviously, the next phase is
What do we do? What steps do we take to make sure that that?
We really felt like we couldn't start those until the board has approved it and is adopted. We have drafted some things, but nothing in detail. So we're waiting for that adoption.
I think it would also be good, I think it's a good conversation for us to have as a group, right? And any input that you guys can provide in terms of metrics that you think makes sense. I mean, that's our sandbox for sure, right? Is to make sure that policies are being implemented and followed. And so to the extent that you guys come up with actionable metrics, I think it's, especially as new sets of eyes on this, it'd be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Same with communication. There's a lot that's been discussed, some of which is old, some of which is new. But I think it's going to be really helpful for you guys to give your input in the meetings and outside of the meetings, because communications is never something that you're done on, right? And
it's a moving target. I mean, I had a chance to meet with the FACE team and companies, so it's great, very productive. I'm delighted they got to come and deliver the presentation tonight, because there's a lot of good stuff there. I'm sure a lot of people in this room are already bored of me banging that drum, but I think it's absolutely critical, and whatever as a board we can do to support that. I'm just keen to make sure that happens. And I know we talked about how you're storming right now, but as we move into norming and performing, I hope we'll get more updates and get to hear more what's going on.
great. Thank you, Dr. Levesque. Super.
And the only thing I would say also to add with equity, like it does inform our budget decisions. So we have more work to do than just say, find a great way to implement it, please, and tell us.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? So we got to do some dirty work as well and understand what as Andrew said, our accountable measures are and stuff. We don't just adopt this and get to say our hands are clean and we don't have any accountability now. The success of this is going to ride as much on our ability to help guide the policy implementation, policy, and how we will hold ourselves also accountable more than just what are we gonna do? How are you gonna implement it? That's not that, and the same in communications, like there's a few concrete things we've now added. Leadership, trying to re-engage with KPCW on a monthly basis. And other administrators going on and having more engagement. So I think that keep beating the drum on stuff and keep finding accountable measures that are more than just, broad, we need to be better at this, or we need to do this. So again, any of your fresh ideas to the table that are, proactive and positive and ideas are more than welcome. I think we're at that stage where we need to start implementing, but we need to be held more accountable to doing that. More than just saying it needs to be done. So I would just, and I know we've offered them to let us know what kind of support we can get to get this stuff managed, and especially with the equity policy stuff, how we can be more aligned with supporting all of us who are doing the dirty work, frankly, and the hardest work.
Well, how many of you, most of you here were on the policy committee? So Lindsay, raise your hand, Carolyn, Krista, Rebecca, you weren't on policy, but you've been at the big meeting, right? Several times, yeah. Dr. Jake, yep, also there.
And Amy,
Joe, Amy. So yeah, lots of inputs into it, lots of analysis, lots of research. And it was really long. What was the original draft? It was really long.
17 pages.
17 pages. And so some of these say it's just a draft. They actually have a really nice working plan. But it was like, if we make this a policy, we have to post it 20 days every time we change something. Are these more procedures? Right. So that's where it'll still be published. It'll still be part of the document, but at least you can see the overlay. Right. The overlay is the umbrella, the policy, and then all the things under it, kind of the regulations.
And I think also in terms of like implementation, hopefully as that gets developed, once the policy gets adopted, you're gonna hear some of the stuff, some of the strides that have already been made. So it's not like we're starting over and like, okay, now let's lean into our mission that's been there for a while. You're gonna hear stories about classes that already have achieved what some of the goals are that would reflect. Some of this work is vertical and it's achievable, and you can watch the measurement of it, and some of it's horizontal. And it's how a student feels and how a staff member feels, and so some of those narratives are gonna have to be included in some of this. And I know some great successes we can say right now, like it would be,
We have joint aviation class at the high school, and the demographic matches the high school demographic. Exactly, in some places, like for our Latinx percentage, it is higher in that class than it is in high school. And that was a very intentional effort amongst us within CTE.
So again, that opportunity, opening the door to opportunity for a student to graduate ready to take a drone certification test is amazing. There's realtors need, the aerial imagery and filmmaking, and it just opens the door for all kinds of really cool opportunities for kids. The construction class is amazing. We've done a walkthrough. Nick and I got to see an afternoon session. We're going to go back and see a morning session. But again, that's like tripled in enrollment from what it was.
Ninth graders.
And even if they hate construction, you get life skills, like how do you fix a sink and how do you repair your drywall? Really cool. Cool hands-on classes that have pathways to careers if students are interested. It opens again the doors. So we do a great job. A lot of this is getting a story out there about it all.
Just to tie it right in.
Now lots of great spots.
Two students on that policy writing committee as well.
Yeah.
Two seniors in the high school helped write the policy. That were like invaluable. We'll throw that out there. They did really good work amongst all the other stuff. But, they were here on the this help as well.
Did you want to talk about the Sterling Scholars, the two students?
Yeah, so those are our two Sterling Scholars this year, who are our co-presidents of Latinos in Action in English and Science. And certainly scholarship started is very white worded space in our school. They both were finalists, and then Little Rounds, I got runner up in our region for English, her poetry exceptional. And they were the two students that helped us with the policy. So it's two like really talented students, young people, but yeah.
Yep, just encouraging that growth and participation is awesome. Awesome. So the doors are open here, right? When the kids are ready, we are ready for them. So excellent. Thank you again, everybody, for your work to date and your ongoing work, because we know we're going to keep at it. The policy is just one part, but it's, again, if you look at the wording of it, it's very positive. It's forward motion. It does define what we're hoping for in academics, leadership, and recruitment, and many of the areas. And then you'll find that that draft will working document or procedures hopefully will follow also that same framework, so we can keep things aligned strategically. That will help.
Thank you all. We'll move to 5.01 district facility update. We get a brief update on the latest, so we keep this thing moving.
This board knows we have $129 million of projects underway, six different facilities, 4 of which are underway right now. They're broken up into county and city projects. For county projects, Jeremy Ranch Elementary is got full construction underway. Right now, we're pouring the footings and foundation wall. Utility blockouts are being placed in the foundation walls to support electrical and plumbing. And the storm drain tie-ins to the storm tech water detention system are being crafted. Good thing about Jeremy is the masons will be on site soon, and the walls will begin to emerge from the foundation. So that's kind of exciting. Eckerd Hill Middle School bid package number 1, which is the bus lot. We are fully permitted to do construction right now. We're holding off because of the high soil moisture and the snow. Park City School District has done everything possible to facilitate the church property close, but we're still waiting on a final date to make it happen. Eckerd Hill Middle School bid package number 2. That's the overall project. Full construction is possible and work will resume soon. This week we're concentrating on snow removal and installing construction fencing. Will take place in preparation for the gym expansion to the south. So you're going to start to see construction fencing going on the backside over by the pool. We've met with the Eckerd Hill Middle School staff and pool staff to ensure we're doing things safely and facilitating students and patron movement through the pool facility. Carly's Park Elementary, we've started coordination with the county. We're deep into the design phase there. Good thing about Carly's is that it's small enough in size and that it won't require a modification to the county's master development plan. It will not have to be in front of the Snyderville Basin Planning Commission or Summit County Council for approval. Once the plans are submitted to the county, we anticipate approximately 8 weeks for approval. Girls Elementary, again, we started coordination with the county already. Design is in process right now. For the city schools, we got Poland Elementary, full construction's underway. Again, just like at Jeremy, the forming and pouring the footings and foundation walls. Work on excavation and placement of new storm drainage lines is happening throughout the site. Park City High School, again, full construction is underway, although right now that's concentrating on snow removal, and we're hoping to bring in structural fill this week if the weather allows. Just a reminder to everyone who's listening, our construction summaries are posted each week on the district website, and that's a work in progress. So we had both narrative, layman's terms reports and a spreadsheet on the permitting status for each one of the projects. We do have JD from MOCA with us tonight, from the owner's rep team, if you have any in-depth questions for the construction work. Instruction.
I have nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially in this day.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll do a quick legislative update. Medical session is please. Thank God.
So just real quick, I'll just hit a couple highlights. 6% on the WPU. From the legislature, full day kindergarten is being funded in the past. Some of it has been funded, but only for districts that do not have full day kindergarten. So Now Park City will be part of that, we'll fund our full day kindergarten. Starting this upcoming year, so. Probably the big thing on the docket is the Senate Joint Resolution 10, which is the attempt to amend the Utah Constitution. To take the earmark off of the income tax for public education, higher education, and special ed. And the plan is to have that on the ballot in November of 2024. So there'll be one more legislative session to work through that. There have been some concessions by the legislature. For example, statewide, as enrollment decreases, there's a plan. There's a few years it's going to decrease, but that decrease will not be, that decrease will be put back on the WPU in value to help districts overall. So there's been a few concessions that will still be discussed, I think, in the new session. So unless there's something specific somebody wants to know about, I'll just leave it at that for time's sake.
Good, thank you.
Any questions? Meredith, anything we're missing?
No, right?
Anything any new surprises for us? As our legislative expert.
The next one,
Stay
vigilant. Is all I'm gonna say.
All right, we'll move into school fees. We've had one public hearing on school fees. We'll have another public comment on school fees following this. And you know, the background on this obviously is looking at fees through an equity lens. Several years ago, we decided to waive all academic fees for students to remove barriers. And that has changed over time, and state has in certain cases followed suit, in other cases not. But you want to give us an update on where we stand with all those?
Yeah, so before you have most of the extracurricular fees, activity type fees, that have, I accepted. They're on a second reading today. Like President Kaplan stated, that we got a public hearing and then a second, then a motion to approve on second reading. By the deadline of April 1st, spend plans are also included in there, just how the fees are going to be spent. And then schools will start working on the budgets as far as once those are approved, how they're going to spend those and allocate those out. So one note is, I know before you tonight, an issue with boys volleyball, which is a new sanctioned sports or next year. The volleyball line for fees is for both the boys and girls, although it's not designated, just so you're aware of that. So I have a report.
Is there, I know it's not under fees, but it's kind of related. As we offer universal pre-K starting in, I guess not this year, but in a year's time, or a year and a half's time, is that being built into the budget separately, or is that like when will we start to see the cost of that? Won't be in this budget cycle. The next one will be the next one.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. I think it'd be helpful to see kind of what our estimates are on that too. You know, especially as we look towards long-term commitments on funding, increased salaries.
Okay, I think the structure being done.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably want to know what that looks like. Even if it's 2 or 3 years out.
Okay.
That'd be
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any questions on school fees? Okay. Let's do this. Let's have, do we have any public comment on school fees? Oh, you, go ahead.
For the CNA program, it's one of the higher,
Sorry, which one?
the CNA certified nurse.
Okay. Yeah.
If there are students that want to participate, that's other, there's an education foundation or are there resources to help those students?
Yes, my understanding is those fees are actually for the equipment
Uh-huh.
and then for the certification test as well as the state. So part of that fee is actually charged by the state and the CNA certification.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand.
So,
That's the other-
obviously our goal is not to exclude any students.
Right.
From this kind of thing, so we would probably do that on a case by case basis, but. Yeah, but that's what it's been shown.
Yeah, I think the short answer is no. I think every activity has a fee waiver system.
Yeah.
So people can apply for a waiver for financial reasons. But that's not a perfect system, and that's why we got rid of most of the other ones. I think if I recall correctly, this one remained because it was considered an additional certificate rather than part of core curriculum. So in the past, you would have stuff like you were charged for spiral notebook for science lab, right? And we're like, well, okay, that's ridiculous. But to get an extra certification in something, and that's kind of the gray area, but there's nothing to say that. You know, I don't know how much this is a year or if someone can pay for it or whatever, but that's kind of the background.
So there's other budget available to each supply, so we always use that helps.
We talked about ways of improving a need for a student who needs that help, having to go and proactively seek that out and how to make that an easier, less cumbersome. Process, because I think it's harder to access when it's you having to proactively go, so.
And that's one of those certifications that's really
Yeah,
valuable.
yeah.
If you've got it.
I know, you're incredible.
It's like even the dance, I mean, we talked about that in that Stuco meeting, right? It was $40 for the dance. That's not cheap. A lot of people paying for that. So it was, you guys explained that there's a way that you could still attend and it could be waived. But again, you have to raise your hand and say, I can't afford to go. And I really want to go. I'm sure that that's a non-starter for most people. It was a great dance.
In the event of those waivers, are those costs picked up by the district?
Mhm. Yeah, it's similar to the free and reduced lunch
Yeah.
system, so all you have to do is apply for it and. It's waived and then it becomes a cost to the district.
And often like teachers or coaches can help facilitate that, like, let's get that, that waiver file filled out for you, because that's not something the student's gonna go and, try out or join a class and be like, oh.
Obviously requires it.
Right,
Families.
exactly. Yeah. So.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on school fees? Okay. Then we will move on to decision. Let's actually, since we're on school fees, let's just do decision on school fees. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the schedule and spending plans as listed in board docs, which are the FY24 proposed student fees and the spend plans proposed.
I make a motion to adopt. Second.
Okay, do you have any questions or conversation on school fees? Okay, all those in favor of passing FY24 school fees, please say aye.
Aye.
Next decision is the 3-year school calendar approval. So this was reviewed in our last meeting, I believe. Have we had any comments publicly or from PCEA or any other stakeholder groups?
We tried to take that input as Lori built the calendar and as people provided the input, we tried to do the edits throughout. So we don't really have like a one set edit date. It's kind of multiple things, but it follows a similar pattern to what this year is. So people like this year felt like the calendar. People weren't crazy about this year. May not love the calendar, but it still has like a PD date. It has some PD front loaded. It has added 3 days of teacher orientation for new staff, so that if they're not going to get so much in 2 days. What are some other?
Was there any, what was the thought on snow days? We decided not to build those in, it looks like.
If Lori has any feedback.
No, we didn't build any in. We still have that PD day on the March 5th or 6th that we could use as the snow day. But that's the only.
Well, these last days of school Fridays, so that would flip us into the next week if we added in snow days, is that what that's about?
Yeah, you guys can certainly, add those, you can adapt, you can modify, if you'd like to do those, you put them at the end, then you always take them off. It just gets confusing for people because they think, oh, do we end the 8th? No, it's really the 2nd. Oh, could you just show us the 2nd then?
So historically though, when this year we had a snow day, when was the last snow day we had?
We had one in 2018 and we had the one this year, as well as I think we tried the 2-hour delay once or twice. The 2-hour delay, we're gonna have to do some surveying on because it's not a perfect solution, but it certainly gives teachers a little bit more time to get here on those bad days, but it really is disruptive, right? And you can't do that on a Friday because then you wouldn't meet minimum school day. So,
I mean, the odds are we probably
an anomaly year, so.
This was quite a year.
Right, so we don't, it's like we have 4 snow days a year, so we have one every once in a while, right? So
One every once in a
I
while.
think we've had like 3 in 20 years.
That's what I thought, I'm curious, that's your right, so I think so, because I was part of that conversation, we had to do like a post-mortem on the snow day. Maybe that's kind of what we do.
That's what we do,
Do
yeah.
a delayed start, criteria, whatever, blah, blah.
Yeah, actually, are we making it a power outage day? Not it.
Right.
I know it's power outage.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point.
so.
Okay, so I should have done this earlier. I'll entertain a motion to approve the 3-year school calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the 3-year school calendar as listed.
Do we have any other discussion or questions on the dates here? All right, in that case, all those in favor of approving school calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. All right, we have 8 policies for posting, and I would encourage the public to look at these because there are a number that have come at the request of the public or our various stakeholders. And so in the interest of communication and transparency, a lot of these are directly related to things that have come from our stakeholders. We have policy 10016, educational equity. That's a new policy that we've been discussing. I would encourage everyone to read that. We also have policy 4010. 7070 is paid paternal leave or parental leave. We can post this, but I would definitely like to have feedback from PCEA and that team prior to approving this. The background on this one.
I was gonna say, is this the version 4 they've really?
This is, they haven't put their input into, this is a relatively new policy that's probably 4 or 5 years old. That came from a teacher wanting maternity leave, and for some reason, we didn't have it, paid maternity leave. And so this was created to give parents time to spend with their newborns. So the goal from the board at the time was to create an accommodation and make this a better employer as a district. So this is going to be an amendment to that, and it's kind of the first time that we've come across some issues with the way that it's written. But that's what that is. We have policy 7075, 12-month employee staff holidays, policy 9000 academic integrity, policy 9015 patriotic education. This one's around saying the Pledge of Allegiance every day, which also came from community. Policy 9025 wellness, and policy 10010 enrollment, which is always a fun topic and something that I know Lori spends a tremendous amount of time on in terms of open enrollment, and the board always looks at it every year, and this is an important one. So people should look at that. So we have 8 policies for posting. I'll entertain a motion to post all 8 of these policies.
I make a motion to post all 8 of these policies as stated.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments on any of these 8?
I will have a lot,
Yes.
so I think I
Let's
will.
get them posted.
Yeah, I hope that people, and let's definitely make sure that we have PCA feedback on the paid parental leave. All right, all those in favor of posting these 8 policies, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, then we have 10 policies for adoption. I'll read them off. I'll entertain a motion to adopt policy 7015. Policy 7020, 7025, 7035, 7045, 7050, 7057, 7115, 7171, and 11025. Lori, sorry.
I make a motion to adopt policies as stated.
Okay, Lori, do we have any feedback on any of these policies during the posting period? Okay. Do we have any questions on any of these policies from the team? Okay. All right, all in favor of adopting these 10 policies as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, those all pass. They're adopted. Next, we'll move on to public comment. Got one public comment. Barry Nan, please join us.
Thanks.
Well, I learned a lot tonight, so thank you. I came tonight because I got quite a few calls and texts and emails, as I do, around the equity policy being posted. And I now understand that people didn't quite understand what was happening. So everybody felt very frantic, and what are we going to do? Because we've only had a minimal amount of time to look at this, and they didn't understand the process. So I was really encouraged to hear the presentation from the FACE team, because I feel like we can leverage that as a community, as a resource to get more communication out around this topic in particular, and around the policies that you're posting tonight, which are important for all of us as stakeholders to pay attention to, evaluate, comment on. So the more, my philosophy on stuff like this is really like communicate to death. Like if you think you're communicating enough, you're not. And that's not you, that's the universal us, right? We just, in situations like these where we've got so much stuff competing for our attention as human beings these days, having principals sending out notes saying, hey, there's some policies that are coming up that are important and we want your feedback, that's really valuable, because then it's a personal touch from the principal. And particularly it's gotten very heated around equity, and really I think we all in this community have the same goal, which is to get our children and our staff in a place where people complete a Park City School District education and they're prepared to communicate and engage with people from all walks of life, all different backgrounds, all different ways of operating. And whatever we're going to be doing to improve our processes on that is something that I think is really, really valuable to communicate about. So that was kind of my baseline for coming in. And, you know, on that note, I did participate in the earliest version of the equity committee, or whatever we called it then, when we met over at the Blake, and at the Blair rather. And several of the other members of the cohort have called me in the last couple of weeks and said, do we even know what's going on? I didn't even know that like we weren't meeting anymore. So if communication was sent out, I don't recall receiving it, that thanks for your time and we're changing the shape of the committee, but it would probably be valuable to get an update out to the people who did invest the time into that space. So that's all I have to say today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
All right. So we have, let's see. We have the first meeting of the tribes on the 28th, is that right? March 28th at the associations.
Yes.
So I would say that we'll probably want a closed session. We have two options. We can do closed to discuss that at our next board meeting, which would be the 18th, or we can have closed prior to that. What are we're exchanging interests, and
Just, we're only intaking interest from employee groups at this first one. So we're just green intake, and if we get to prioritization, that's cool. If we don't, that's okay. Depending on the categories of the topics, then we'll break into subcommittees. Certain people like to work on the language, certain people like to work on compensation structures.
yeah, the LPA and the contracts.
Yeah, board meeting day.
Yeah. So yeah, why don't we do you guys are okay with it? Why don't we do the same thing at 3:30 closed?
From that time.
It should be. We
Okay.
could do 3. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I can do that. I can do
Should
great.
we do 3 in case we have some big decisions to make there? Okay, so let's call it 3 for, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn until our next regularly scheduled meeting on April 18th after spring break at 3 p.m.
I'll make a motion to adjourn until our next meeting on April 18th at 3 p.m. Yeah.
What's up?
That's
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It's 15th?
It was the 18th this week. It's being the middle.
Sweet. All right.
Yep, you extra.
All right, all those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
The rest?
Take the rest.
No, I'm not.
I'm done. Second, take a second.
This is.
I can't have any more. I can't.